Hey guys, I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the process when you're kind of cleaning up your outline and moving from outline to rough draft. So one of the things that we all know that you guys have felt, and I know just from practical reasons, is that your outline, and when you pulled it over from Noodle Tools, it's kind of a mess. It's kind of hard to follow. It's kind of hard to figure out what is going on. And then you have this outline document that I gave you that's also, kind of weird because it's got two columns in it. So you need to make this, first of all, a much better kind of cleaned up working outline. And in the process of doing that, it's going to help you kind of pull together the pieces of your outline and kind of figure out what needs to happen. To some extent, some of what you might do might change the order. You might rearrange some things. And when it's all said and done, it might look very different from the structure you had originally planned. And that is absolutely okay. What I want you to do is at every step along the way, I want you to improve and better your outline. The question you need to answer is, how does power shape our world? It's even in the assignment here itself. How does power shape our world? So if you're answering that question, then you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Now, just generally, power and world are very broad topics. So you have a type of power that you focused on, and you have an aspect of the world that you think is relevant to not just yourself, but to other people. And so that's how you've narrowed it down. So you might have a certain kind of power, and you might have a certain group or idea or situation in the world. And that's where we're headed. So that's good. You could plug those things into this and still have the same concept. So I took a student's document to kind of show you what one might look like. So I gave you this stuff here, and this student, instead of plugging in over the top, just copied and pasted their outline at the bottom. Completely fine. But you probably don't need this anymore. Some people like to keep this to refer back to as like a checklist. Did I do all that? Great. If you do that, you could get rid of the side you're not using, so you kind of get out of the way. Another thing you can do is use this as like a highlight. Like when you're done with it, you could do that, or strike through, cross it off, delete it as you go. Oftentimes I use that kind of process to help me make sure I've done everything I needed to do. I use outlines as a checklist, so to speak, or especially general outlines, or you can just delete it and get it out of the way because it's confusing to you and it's in your way. When it's all said and done, I want a well-structured paper. Outlines are a tool that you're going to have to learn how to kind of navigate and control on your own. But if you're not comfortable with structuring an argument, or you're not sure if you have all the parts, then I would use this as a checklist and make sure you have all the bits that you need. Okay, so this person has their outline down here. They're going to direct. So there's really kind of general ideas here. Direct towards audience, context, use some sources. I would like to see those sources here. At this point. So you've got your note cards, you've got your citations, you've got everything you need in this spot. But at least they have a plan. And so this is a good thing to start with. So if you know, okay, I'm going to use some sources, what are you going to use these sources to do? This is the time period now where instead of having the word context here, you're going to add in specific details and just, actually add in what you need to be doing at this point. So I'll make a little note here. You want to actually state the source information and cite it. Okay, so it's a great place to use some sources there. And then they have their thesis statement, everyday teens, refresh their social media. Media is plural on its own, so you don't need the S at the end. And it's easy to see the addiction, comparison, and validation that comes with being active on these apps, which ultimately takes away your power as an individual. Great idea. We got individual power and the fact that these apps are pulling it away. It's a little wordy, but at this point, you've got a clear idea of what you're going for. And if you find that you can actually pull some of this into your context, then when you're writing, you can do that and make your thesis more simple. If not, this can still work as a thesis statement. The other thing is, this has your power, and then up here we're talking about teens. So we got third person, and then we have your power here. So you might want to rephrase it to something like, which ultimately removes individual power, and just call it individual power instead of your power as an individual. And then you can that's one way you can kind of get rid of some words. So those are some things to think about there with your thesis statement. So we have our body. We're talking about addiction first, and we've got the addiction piece, a huge quote that does have a citation at the end of it, which is good, and it is correct. There's the last name there. We need a period at the end. And these are the little details that I would work on as you clean up this particular part. This is a direct quote, so I would put it in quotation marks here, just to make sure that we are getting our quotation marks in and we know what that is. And then I would take this, if we know we're going to use this, and I would move this to the works cited from this particular spot, because you don't want to have your citations in the middle. So move to works cited at the bottom. And we don't need all these other pieces. We just have the direct quote. So we'll leave the addiction part there. We're going to cut this from here, and we're going to move it all the way to the bottom where it says works cited. Oh, we don't have a works cited on this one, so we'll just write it in, works cited, and we're just going to paste it there. Okay, and we don't need to have that, so we'll just, because we're going to rearrange and stuff and move it around. So I'm moving that down here. Now, if you go back up to this first thing that we have, we don't really need a lot of this. So now we just have the direct quote. We got the idea of addiction, and we've got a direct quote, a paraphrase, which is good. Comparing it, so this person will have to decide. Okay, so this paraphrase sounds to me like maybe it is a topic sentence to this. So I might move it here and just paste it over here. The people behind these scenes are intentionally using your data to make you become more addicted. So you have to decide, second person or third person. If you're going to say your, make sure you're consistently addressing the audience throughout. You can use second person. You can address the audience like it's a conversation. That's completely fine for this essay. But you need to be consistent about it and not hop in and out of using that tool. So if you're going to use that tool, use it all the way through. If you're going to write it as a third person thing, you can totally do that, but just don't use your throughout the paper. Then you can use I as well if you think that makes a difference, but make sure that you are using you're not showing bias of your own perception, that you're using resources to support what you're stating with that as well. All right, this ties into the social dilemma, how it explains true, but not the creators. Okay, so this I really like. I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to put it over here. And just make it a comment for myself, because that is not the words that I would use, but it would be a good connection of like how we're connecting different ideas. And the social dilemma, you can actually use that as a source if you wanted to for this essay because of the topic. So if you watched it and you want to use it, paraphrase it, and describe it, just add it down below as one of your sources, and you can totally use that. So that's a great idea. And then, so we don't need this here because we're down to our next one. And so this one is about usage. So it's kind of back with the addiction piece. I'm going to, again, add in my quotations around this particular thing. There's no citation here with this. Direct quote hours, my ideas, direct quote, keywords, my ideas. So this person didn't attach sources. So I don't know even where this came from. So this is a problem because there's no source attached to this particular quote. And so this needs a source. Okay, oops. I hit the wrong button. Let's see. Undo. And then that's because it's underneath that. There we go. It needs a source. So this is why we're going through the cleanup process first, because things like this happen. You forget to add a source somewhere, and you need to make sure you do that. So we're going to go ahead and delete that because that's all extra stuff. And then you're going to get rid of it. And then keep going through and moving your information from your articles. And this person, it looks like, here's another source, Barry. So then this one, we're going to make sure that we have the citation after it, which it already is. So now we can cut this and we can paste it down here. And I got into editing mode rather than the regular mode. So there you go. And then when you pop them down here, just pop them in alphabetical order. So B comes before H. So I popped it in first. And then you can go through, and I would kind of clean up the outline first to get rid of these little bits and pieces here before we get going. Make sure that you have your correct spelling, all that kind of stuff. This is way too big of a quote. So you've got two choices here: quote part of it, or paraphrase it so that you get to that idea. So that is how you clean up your outline. So I'm going to walk you through in a different video what needs to go around these quotes to kind of help you build into the outline in another video. But that is step one, cleaning up your outline so that it is workable and no longer kind of a mess. So, all right, thanks.